Okay, you're being recorded. If you do not want to be visible on this recording, I certainly do understand if you turn off your camera. And yeah, thank you all. This is the Hustler Happy Hour number 6. And this also means not only have we made it 3/4 of the way through the year, it means that we've also spent a third of that time, maybe half that time together. And I'm really grateful for each of you for being lifelines and anchors and lighthouses for me. And I hope that that's been a similar experience for you as well. Um, so this month we have another chance to talk about career management, and I've invited Neela Paul to join us to talk about her career and life and some insights that she's gained. So um, Neela, I would love for you to introduce yourself, tell us about your work and what you're doing now and why I would have called you onto this call.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. It's my honor to be here. I was so delighted when you invited me. So everybody, I have been in the food science world for 30 plus years. I've worked at 2 big food companies, Kraft Foods for 18 years and then Mars for 13. After that, I was actually at Panda Restaurant Group, heading up the R&D team for about 2 years. But my passion has always been leadership development and coaching. And so for the last couple of years, I've really made a pivot. And now I am an executive and leadership coach. And my joy is to help leaders in the food world, other technical people as well, really be their best, figure out how to make differences in the world right now. As many of you fully realize, I'm sure, right now science is being thrown under the bus and people are thinking that data is negotiable. More than ever, I really want, it's truly my calling, I really want to help technical leaders find their voice and have more impact in the world. So in any small way that I can do it, I feel like I can multiply what I do and what I can contribute. So that's what I'm doing now. And I coach individuals, teams, within companies and folks just on their own. And I really focus on technical and creative professionals. And when, RCA is literally the combination of that blend. And so I was so delighted. I met Kimberly earlier this year and really just connected right away. So thank you so much again for the invitation.
Thank you so much for joining us. In the interest of time, I would love for each of you to take a second to introduce yourself on the chat, to share, your name, where you work, what you do. It can be in haiku, it can look like your business card, however you'd like to introduce yourself. I'd like for Neela to get to know some of you. Neela, the peers in this conversation are truly the people that I reach out to when I need an ingredient, when I need some direction, I need to vent and enjoy a Bloody Mary, all of those things together. So maybe not all at once, but you know what I mean. So Neela, one of the reasons that I really felt it was important for you to get to meet our group is to kind of help us recognize that this 2020 has been such an interesting and very different year from anything we'd been prepared for. I don't know if anyone else's year has gone at all close to what they expected, but I, for one, I'm still in a job, so there's that. But otherwise, it looks very different from what I expected. And I think it's okay, and we should acknowledge that this is different and might be awkward and potentially really painful in its awkwardness for some people. Some businesses are having their best year ever, and some of them are not. And I think taking that time to observe it is healthy. What do you think? I mean, am I wallowing in self-pity here?
So how I'd love to run today, I'm going to speak, and I love that Kimberly's asking prompts, and I'm going to chime in with some things I've learned. I have coached a lot of people, and I've done a lot of studying on this topic. So I've done webinars and all that. And right now, resilience is the single thing that's helping people move through this year, because things have happened that are not only not in our control, but completely unexpected. And so many of us feel like wave upon wave of new things keep coming up, whether it be in personal job stuff, family, just insecurity, if you will, about what the future is going to hold. COVID itself is really scary for many, many people. And you add all these things together, and then of course we've got this election coming up with all the and all the racial tensions going on, the economy. So it's almost impossible for anybody to have started 2020, which is a whole brand new decade. I know most of us, when we did our New Year's resolutions, it wasn't just for the year, it was for the decade. I know I did. And all of a sudden, the year just completely changed. So I think that you're spot on, Kimberly, in terms of how people are feeling. And what I have some things to share with you on ways that we could build resilience. It's a very important topic that I've been studying and I've been teaching and training on, but it's also other pieces about how we navigate our own careers in this very complicated time. So I'm going to take the cues from you guys on how you want this conversation to go. I'm utterly open to all of it. So Kimberly, I'll let you sort of direct, and then I'm whatever you want to talk about.
I'll start with the first question then. Can you talk to us about resilience? How would you describe it for food scientists and product developers? How does that look in our daily life?
So first, let me just define it real quick. It's obvious, but it really is worth unpacking it. Resilience is the ability to recover quickly from an unexpected situation. And the key is unexpected. When we plan for something and we've contingency planned it, sure, we have some resilience muscles that we use, but true resilience comes from the unknown and unexpected. And I have to say this, as I said just a second ago, 2020 has been nothing but that. Now, growing resilience, especially in our industry, is a really important thing. Things have shifted completely. Some food organizations and teams, as you were saying, Kimberly, have just gone gangbusters. I mean, people are buying more and more. They're not eating out. Unfortunately, for a lot of the chefs and culinarians, this has been devastating. But for people that are in the CPG world, or helping in that industry, certain aspects are doing really well. So the big question is, how can the individual use their own individual ability to see what's possible here? It needs to be your own agency. And the reason I love this word agency, agency is all about feeling as empowered as you can to make some decisions. What happens when people start to go down the anxiety spiral, and right now, there's been studies done broadly. Over 30% of Americans are actually in anxiety. And this is actually diagnosed. This isn't just a number that's being thrown out. It's been studied by the American Psychiatric Association as well as the AMA. It's a lot of people. And anxiety is about this whole idea of not being in control, right? So agency is really a strategy of trying to see, what is it that I can actually control? Sometimes it's not a lot of things, but even that first step on what that is starts to help grow resilience and starts to help each of us be more creative in seeing other options. I'm sure many of you have thought when you're stressed, you become kind of tunnel visioned. It's just a natural response. You just get into, okay, I'm just going to do this, and it's great because you're taking some actions. But your actions aren't necessarily creative, and they're not necessarily the most optimal for solution. It may be busy work, and maybe sometimes busy work is okay. But in the spirit of really pivoting if you need to, or digging deep if you need to be able to be at choice.
Let's talk about some of that busy work, because I feel like today I spent a ton of time on busy work, knowing that I have some very big strategic lifts that I also could be spending my time on. So I dug through emails. I have a customer facing job, so I need to respond to them, etc. Is that actually busy work?
No. So here's the thing, it's about, so I also, one of my beautiful areas that I love studying is time management and what is it, because we all have 24 hours. Everybody has the same amount of time. Busy work, the way I define it, is an activity that is actually discretionary and stretches much longer than it potentially needs to. You've heard of that principle that the work stretches for the amount of time available. when you're in a mindset of trying to avoid the hard thing, then what you do is that you take something that is important, but instead of doing it in an hour, 3 hours later, you're still working on it. Then it turns into busy work. Now, true busy work is Facebook surfing and, sending the 17th text to your mother, things of that sort. That may be potentially an easier way to characterize a waste of time. But the things that you're describing, things like getting back to people on emails, this is all reputational building, and there's things to be done. However, the big question I ask and challenge all of us, how much time are you doing? I'm sure many of you have tricks, but I literally use my phone to help me with the busy work. So what I do is you may have heard of numbers that are sort of magical for many people. There's this 25-minute of work, 5-minute of break rule. So that works for some people. Other people, and it's been studied, work for 52 minutes and take an 8-minute break. For some bizarre reason, these patterns have been identified, and they vary individual to individual, as sort of optimal concentration amounts. So when I have something just like you described, it's not supremely important, and it's not strategic, and it's not business building, but it does need to get done. I set my alarm, and then I now have a challenge. And so in the spirit of agency, I feel empowered. I'm actually excited to be doing it because I want to beat the clock. So I play a mind game with myself, but you know what, as weird as that sounds, sometimes I do 25 minutes because I didn't get it done, big deal. But I certainly got it done. And then I now can feel proud of myself. All of a sudden, when I feel proud of myself, I'm more motivated to go do those strategic things, or at least get them started. And I have other tips too on this, but I want to go with where you want to take this conversation.
Well, let's talk about time management when you report to someone else or when you're reporting billable hours. I think those are two very different asks, because there are two professionals on here who are consultants, and then there are the rest of us kind of fall into the kind of R&D expenses that are written off as a loss. So we have a harder time expressing how many hours we spent doing a task. How does kind of that sprint mentality of 25-minute work when you have a manager who's kind of telling you what to do, or when you have to justify those hours to a customer or a client?
Well, what I found in my experiences, and I've been the recipient of that, and I've also been a leader. I've been a pretty senior leader, so I've had multiple layers reporting to me. The bottom line is, even when a manager thinks they're telling you what to do, they're not really telling you the exact details of exactly how to do it. They usually need something done by end of day or by noon or whatever those things are, I think, unless you're talking about something else, because everyone has their own rhythm of how work gets done. So I think that's the 25-minute sprint for I think most people works, even when a manager is saying, I need this by a certain amount of time, because it's still up to you to do. It's an individual task. Now, if it's a task that's being done with others in a team situation, then the most important thing there is to negotiate with the other people on the team. And when I say negotiate, I don't mean go into excruciating amounts of time wasting of that, but just agree that between the hours, so if we're going to work on something together and we're on a three-way Zoom call and we're co-creating or whatever it is, we dedicate that sprint time with each other, and we create norms. That's why I call it operating principles. It's used in a lot of business contexts, but you create some principles. So it's not like you have to negotiate it every time. Most of the time, our peers and coworkers are the same group. So here's how we're going to work together. Somebody has children in the other room, and especially now in the world of our current work at home situation, this is complicated. So it's going to have to get negotiated and renegotiated, and people are going to have to feel that it's okay to be flexible, because what else can you do? So that, I think, is when it's driven by the manager. The billable hours one, I still think at the end of the day has to be the honor system. And that's why I feel very comfortable if I'm in a billable hour situation. When I use my 25-minute, 5-minute thing, I'm pretty darn clear. I mean, I know what I'm doing. It's not like I've lost track of time. It's just something that I've been doing. And so I know that I've spent 3 hours on this yesterday.
want to open up the floor to other people who might have questions. And I guess I'm going to pick on my friends because I know they'll give answers. So Emily, you know, questions coming at you. How I know that your team works in sprints, and you have to balance managing a lot of expectations with customers. How does that actually play out for you? Maybe in the context of COVID, when there just seems to be more tension in the air anyway.
Was that for me? Okay. I was like, how does it play out with COVID? Honestly, I feel like Colonix is fortunate in a lot of ways because our clients are all around the world and we kind of have to be set up to be remote anyways. And COVID didn't change a lot in terms of honestly, the kinds of projects people are asking for are timelines. It seems like the people that are ready to work together and wanting it want things now, and they have to move forward with innovation, or they need their technical project done because it's holding them back from growth. So it seems like all the more important to get things right and put energy where it's meant to go, which is pivoting and figuring things out. So whether it was a trade show and now how do we get it virtual audiences, those are some of the questions that our clients are thinking about. Buyers pushing out meetings with retailers or unknowns about that also is in the back of people's minds, but we're finding that people want to move ahead with making plans. Pilot trips and commercialization has been difficult, obviously, and possible. So something that we're using as a workaround is a remote setup to be able to do that with cameras and videos and shipping like a kit for someone on the production team to be able to allow us to like phone in remotely. So just kind of technological workarounds have been kind of the focus, and getting everyone up to speed on Zoom and meetings, but we were kind of already doing that. So it feels like it's really our clients have stepped up, and now it's less of fumbling around. People are kind of more used to it. So it's been kind of nice in that way. Yeah, a lot of our projects are sprinty though, and staying in close communication, really good time management techniques like Neela talked about. We, as a consultancy, I've worked here for almost a decade now, and it's pretty ingrained in me to manage my time incredibly well because we have to bill for it. So we're supposed to manage and bill by the 15 minutes. I find that 30-minute chunks is the only way I can wrap my head around things. I just go nuts if it's 15 minutes. I would just feel like ineffective all day long. But kind of figuring out, yeah, what that chunk of time is. And then I use my calendar as my time management tool. I just book myself, and I use tentative for things that I'm like planning on doing. And I block out time for things that I know I need to get done. This is a priority. It was due by noon or end of day. So I find that discipline, it can be hard to build if you don't have to. But it's a great muscle to have when you really need it and you start to get really busy and pulled in a lot of different directions, like working on multiple projects or sprints at one time. That's my 2 cents. Neela had a lot of great ideas.
It's okay. Let me just build on that a little bit. I thank you very much, Emily. You know, what's interesting is that what you've described is obviously you guys have figured out how to make this work because you've been doing it for a while, you know, your company. And the culture of your company was already somewhat aligned to this. So one of the things I just want to share, because some of you are in companies or in organizations or you're working solo, where what's happening is that you're coming up against a cultural barrier. And when I say that, it's just that people aren't used to this. It's unusual, and that is creating this almost like a wall that you have to climb over. But if you don't know that the wall is there, you end up getting hurt. You just ram into it because the wall is almost an invisible but real thick wall. And the reason I say that is that it's the unknowns about what people are thinking. So one thing I strongly recommend is to make sure whoever you're working with, your clients, your colleagues, your bosses, make sure that there's no assumptions made on anything as much as you can. Obviously, it'll never be 100%. But if there's something in the back of your mind, trust your intuition. If there's something up that someone is not getting it, or they're feeling, or you feel like they have a different expectation than what you have, in this world where there's almost no face-to-face and there's very little real communication other than this, the Zoom stuff, emails, there is so much misinterpretation of tonality. Emails can be misunderstood as harsh or wishy-washy, and then people are uncomfortable bringing it up. So the more clear you can be, the better, just to build on what you were saying.
Totally. And on that same note, I've seen it a couple of times where people have successfully noticed that something is awkward in the room, like on a Zoom call, and been like, hey, like, is everyone on the same page here? Like, is everyone feeling good? And that can be really hard to do, but super necessary, even if it's just with your peers. But like, if you can tell that something isn't sitting well, or like you see some side eye, like, just, you have to kind of force the conversation to be transparent, because there's no other way, like you said, about emails being misread. If you can't do it on a Zoom call, you're not going to do it.
So one thing that I've done with all of my teams is and I'm going to say it again though, because it is important, create the conditions of like operating principles before you need them. So in other words, if you've got a natural working group and there's 4 people that are going to be working together on a regular basis in this kind of an odd format, before, just as a way of just for the first 5 minutes, hey guys, just want to make sure, because we're all so busy and everything is so fluid, here's what I think are our rules for our team. And then everybody chimes in. And so the rules are, if you're going to be late, you text. If you're, if I don't quite understand, please don't take it personally. I am going to go like this and say, time out, can we chat? So no one takes it the wrong way. What happens is the first time these things happen, if people haven't thought it through or talked about it ahead of time, people go down a rabbit hole of speculation. Oh, they're disrespecting me. I don't know why that's happening. And then you've created so much inefficiency and angst.
Yeah, I keep leaning into a phrase that I picked up from Brene Brown, which was, unclear is unkind, clear is kind. So the more clarity you can provide in a quicker, shorter amount of time, not 75 emails later. If I'm really that discombobulated by whatever was said in the meeting, I'm going to text or I'm going to message or whatever. I mean, Jesse knows this, and Justin. We're on text all the time because it's like, what just happened here? And I think it's been helpful, because as we build alliances within our company and with our customers, we know that we're all on the same team and we're all running the ball forward. But I can't be the quarterback, the center, and the wide receiver all at the same time. It's like literally physically impossible. So, for I picked on Emily, and I got nods from a few others of those of us who've been in the career for nearly 10 years, rounding up or down. What about for those who've been in for fewer than 10 years, or for some of the younger professionals who have just entered the most chaotic working world year ever? How do you all feel?
Yeah, I can share Kimberly, just because maybe she can offer insight. But I feel like one of the biggest problems or challenges this year is just the back and forth of the work environment. So we started the year gung ho, guns blazing, everyone was up in cells. We hit March, work from home. Well, June hit and projects came in like no other, and now we're back to work from home. And we still got the same amount of projects as we had in June. So just managing expectations and going back and forth, and now having to work from home when I got 3 plant trials tomorrow in the plant. And it's hard doing this back and forth and not being consistent. So I can see where she said there's a lot of anxiety and depression in the world, because it's a lot. And I don't have kids. I know a bunch of you have kids, so I can't imagine with school, because the decisions are the same way, back and forth. So I know that's a lot for people to handle right now.
So I'm going to talk a little bit, if I could, about self-care. Some people, when I bring this topic up, think that's soft. It's so not. It's absolutely critical. We are our own worst enemies, and we tell ourselves terrible stories about ourselves. So with what you just described, Sarah, this is going on all the time. It's happening for everybody in different ways, right? Everybody this year has had this one way or another. And what happens is when you're out, as I used the word control earlier, when you don't have the ability to feel like you know what's going on, all of a sudden it gets extremely overwhelming. And each of us responds to that overwhelm in a different way. You know, everyone says, buck up, be strong. Well, that does not work for everybody. You know, my first boss said to me when something went wrong in my project, he was a terrible boss, be the general. Be the general? How am I being the general? I don't even understand what's happening. There's something big going on here. No, what I'm getting at is that the one way that works for someone, or the way they see what a solution is, does not necessarily work for each of us. And so when we have that message in our head about what we're supposed to do, but it's not in integrity, or it's not congruous to who we are inside, we have to step back and say, hold on, I need to have some self-empathy here. I want to check in with myself. What's going on? Am I feeling worried? Am I feeling scared? Am I overwhelmed? And what support do I need? And sometimes it's as simple as just asking that question, taking a few deep breaths, and just saying, okay, what's the one next thing I should do? Just that one next thing. You know, we are so hard on ourselves. We are all professionals, and we think, oh, we're going to strategize 10, 15, 20 steps ahead. I need a 2-year plan. You know, it's got to be all that. Well, that's great. And for many times in our lives, I have it in me to do that. There's a lot of times in my life when things are just overwhelming. All I can think of is the one next thing I can do. And I'm proud of myself for that, because that's the best I've got right now. So all I'm saying is, remember, it's all of the above. Sometimes, you know, things just all happen at once and we have to just take charge. I get that. But kindness to yourself is the very first thing. So please, and it's not self-indulgent. It's the only thing. It's the oxygen mask on an airplane. You cannot help others or take care of a situation if you yourself are not fully fine. So put on your oxygen mask. So that's why self-care is so important. So it's empathy for self. It's building resilience one step at a time. If you went to a gym and decided, because I'm weightlifting now, I don't lift a lot, but a little bit. I decided to do that this year because I can, and it's in my garage. My husband got a Bowflex, so I can do like different things. Anyway, I had a goal for a higher weight. I wanted that weight. I cannot go there to start. So resilience is the same thing. I need to build to it. Whatever that 5-pound increment is at a time, that's how I measure my success. The same thing happens when it comes to this kind of an odd situation 2020 is bringing, what is happening to our careers, our families, and our lives. Take it in the chunk that you can handle it and manage it. Give yourself the attaboy or the attagirl. Reward yourself. And I don't mean reward yourself with, you know, unhealthy habits, but say good job to yourself so that you are getting that self-compassion back. Often we expect it to come from someone else. What's happening right now, because anxiety and so much complication is happening for everyone, we can't rely on other people to tell us all the time that we're doing okay. It just is a different environment now. So this is all about taking charge of your own emotions, your own career. And I would at some point tonight, this evening, just talk a little bit about how you manage your own career in a proactive way, because I think that could be an interesting topic to talk about.
I think one of the challenges I have when I think about self-care is, as a high performer, and I know several of you are also high performers, I think I have the feeling that if I step off the gas at all, things are going to fall apart. And this is what actually crashed my brain last year when I was working with a startup. Was I was trying to take on so many responsibilities for the company, and I felt like the company was invested in because of the work I was doing. Turns out I'm not that important, but it did feel that way at times. And I felt like I was just, if I tried to step back even for a breath, the world would fall. And I think that temptation and that experience is still real for a lot of us on this call, is if one of us lets off the gas, everything else lets off the gas too. Can you talk us through that a little?
So huge. And by the way, thank you for that insight. And thank you for sharing that, because that is something. So many of us have been given messages our whole lives. You're a high achiever. You're really good at what you do. We depend on you. We need you. And frankly, it's true. And our ego has gotten a lot of strokes from that in a good way, but also in an insidious way, because then we have defined our existence as that. We've put our entire self into exactly that performance 100% of the time, even if it is not necessarily true. Because we stop asking ourselves the question, is that really true? And is that really needed right now? Now, if there is a fire, and I live in California, live in Los Angeles, this whole thing with the fires, if there is a fire, seriously, leave the house and run. There is no question. So we're not suggesting that all things are equal. Real problem, please take charge, no question. But there's so many things that our story is the one that keeps us in this situation where we just believe it has to be exactly like this. And the problem is we have enough experiences in the past that validate that hypothesis. So we sort of can remember a couple of times that, well, boy, I mean, I did, and you got a lot of feedback, kudos, and perhaps even a promotion or some really nice words from somebody else saying, oh, thank God you didn't take your foot off the gas. Without you, this would never have happened. And that was true. So you can still feel good about that stuff and know that you don't only have one tool in your toolbox. It's like having, it's like being a carpenter, and you're going to be putting together this frame. Sometimes you need a nail, sometimes you need a screwdriver. And if you only try to use the hammer, even when you're trying to use a screw, that is not going to work. So in the spirit of the tools in the toolbox, sometimes flat out, keep your foot on the gas pedal, get that done. And you know that you can do it. You've done it before, and it's doable. Trust your gut. I mean, if this is something that's going to make you not sleep, not eat, work your butt off, you're already exhausted, you know you're not creative, wait, that doesn't make sense. That's not a good strategy. So stop. But at times you're going to say, look, I'm going to pull an all-nighter. I know it's not the very best thing to do, but I know I can do it. It can be done. So in those cases, please do the all-nighter. I mean, no one is saying don't do it, but know how to pick and choose. Other times, that's actually the wrong strategy. Because you know what? Chunking it out and taking a breath actually gives permission to other people on your team. You become a role model. You become a leader. You can help be that person that challenges the status quo, that maybe there's a different way to do this. And just because we've always been that way in that kind of action mode does not mean it's necessarily the right thing in every situation.
Talk to me about engaging other tools in the toolbox. Let's assume I'm not the carpenter, I'm the screwdriver or the hammer. But if I need, I'm going to go with the screwdriver because I started with that. If I need a hammer and I am a screwdriver, how do I engage the hammer so that they know to start hammering?
And there's where, there's a great book. I just love the title. The book is good too. It's called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. Right? But the title just cracks me up. And I think there is some real truth to that. And that's why the power of networking, the power of collaboration, the power of not being the solo person who goes at everything alone and not sharing what's going on. I've met a lot of people, they're brilliant, but their measure of success is at an individual level to such a degree that they don't necessarily want to bring other people in. I ran research and development for many years, and one of the things that was happening with our science and technology team, and we changed it, but not always completely, is that really brilliant scientists that had a great idea weren't necessarily sharing their idea because they wanted to get the patent on it. And because they wanted to get that patent, they didn't want to overly collaborate it until it was published. Well, wait a minute. I mean, I understand that theoretically, but that isn't the mentality that makes any sense in an organization that's trying to leverage the best thinking. So I just use that as an example. But the point is that if you need a hammer, make sure that you've primed the need for the hammer well ahead of time. You know who that hammer is going to be. It's not new news. And guess what? Have multiple hammers. The beauty of networking, and I believe in the, you brought up Brene Brown, and there's so many wonderful thought leaders in this whole space. In the spirit of abundance, there is plenty. The scarcity mindset is really one of the things that holds us all back because we think there's only just this little bit. So you don't want to bring a lot of people in, and you don't want to be sharing too much, and you don't want to be whatever those things are. It's totally instinctive. We learn this from childhood. You know, you're a kid and you see a pie, there's 8 pieces of pie. Well, there's only 8 pieces. You know, there's 7 people here and I want 2 pieces. So how can I invite somebody else? And the idea that you can cut that pie into smaller pieces and share it more and make more pies and all that, that does not necessarily come instinctively. But I really want to just say that that mindset of bringing more people in leads to more collaborations in the future. I mean, I'm going to say something funny right now. I met Kimberly by accident. Out of nowhere, I got this opportunity today to speak with you guys. And I'm going to say this right now. In our future, I bet we're going to do a zillion things together. I don't know when, I don't know how, but who knows? But that's how this works, right? So you guys are all creatives. And so remember, be as creative as you can in the networks that you have.
And I think, this at the potentially shameless plug for RCA Network, that's why we're here, right? Like, that's why we've spent this time, why you're all hustlers in this group. There are kids trampolining behind me, sorry. And, this is exactly it. It's to identify the other hammers when you're the screwdriver. And that is the most awkward transition I'm going to give Justin a chance for some airtime to talk about some opportunities to be hammers for other people. Justin, take it away.
Never a dull entry. So, hi, everybody. For those who don't know me, Justin Kantak. Most of you do know me, RCA president. Kimberly was nice enough to give me the opportunity to speak to you all. Kind of segueing into the conversation that Neela had provided, is that there's a lot of challenges facing the RCA these days. I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody that COVID has not been kind to our industry at a whole and a level, and to the RCA. And to put this into perspective, the organization last year was displaced about $1 million in top line revenue, which is a significant number. To think about that, we're an organization that moves about $1.5 million a year. So you think about what happens when you miss your revenue by about 66%, 68.3% to be exact. It's very tough. And Jamie's mind's blown because Jamie's my treasurer. So she knows these numbers. But one of the reasons why I'm reaching out is we are activating a series of committee work, and we're following up on doing a lot of actions. And we need your help. Not being able to go and do this alone is something that is very important to me, and being able to activate the team. So if any of you have interest in joining an RCA committee, have additional time, have interest in supporting the RCA at this point in time, let myself or Kimberly or Sarah or Kyle or Jamie or Emily know, because we all have aspects and entry points into committee work. We need help. And honestly, right now, the board has managed to solve a significant portion of that financial challenge, but we're all tired. I can tell you it's been a very stressful 6 or 7 months. See, look at Jamie. She's got bags under her eyes. Help us solve the bags under Jamie's eyes. But we need help. We need more hands. We have about 900 members we have to go call. We have about 1,100 members we have to go run a campaign with to see if we can get donations. To be very honest, we're working with a myriad of sponsorship partners to address our financial needs in the short haul, but we're going to have to do it in a matching campaign with our members. So everything from calling members, contributing, reaching out to students. I just need hands and help and clear eyes, and hope for, and I hope for any of you to be able to join us and support us. So sorry to ramble. It's just, that's basically what I've lived for like 9 months. Jamie, anything you want to add?
Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. I got one headphone working and a child losing her mind downstairs, so I apologize. I do want to mention, so yeah, blah, 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 Justin's right, blah, blah, blah. But I do also want you guys to be aware that I have worked on side projects with a lot of people and a lot of these beautiful faces that I see who have contributed, since we started this group. And I am so grateful for your help and your patience and your friendship and your mentorship. And that's really, I mean, to Neela's point, that's what kind of networking is about, right? There's some beautiful new faces I don't know. I also want to do a very embarrassing call out for Regina, who she was my mentee from the professional advisory. I was her professional advisor. She's actually in Malaysia right now, guys. It's like 7 a.m. And I tell you, she's a rock star. And the people you see in front of you, no joke, you guys are the people who are going to make the changes and who are going to change this organization. And Neil, I've already had probably 3 or 4 people text me like, oh my God, I need you as my life coach. So you should put your, maybe a discount during this hard time for everyone. But to Justin's point, yes, we need help to do a lot of things, but also to let you guys know, a lot of you have helped already. Please know that we appreciate that, and I'm going to continue to bug you for more help, probably very soon. But again, we're always here, and this is what this whole group is about, right? And Kim, thank you so much for this. I think Neela is fantastic. She should come on at least once a month.
I'd be honored.
Yeah, I mean, let me give the microphone to someone else, but thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate that too.
Well, I have a question. How do you stay motivated? So between all this stress, all this pressure, all this, I'm working from home, accountability, how do I, justify my existence? E-learning if you have children. There's some people on here who I know are doing their masters. There's other people who have how do you and what was really wonderful was that 25-minute and the 52-minute, I wrote all that stuff down, but it's like, how do you keep yourself motivated as a human being on planet Earth when you just are so full of stress or anxiety or whatever? What are some tips, I guess, or suggestions that can keep you kind of motivated during this time?
Brilliant question. So as I said before, but I want to say it again, as soon as you catch yourself feeling the stress, now keep in mind, when you feel stress, you don't just think stress, you start to feel it in your body. I don't know how many of you, if you do yoga or you meditate or you do any of these things, you realize that stress and feelings, sensations in your body are the cue to the fact that something's going on in your head that isn't exactly what you want. Before you can consciously know, you feel it. So I think that here's what I would actually have you do. When you start to feel like I'm overwhelmed, just literally say to yourself, where in my body am I feeling this? Literally sit somewhere, stand somewhere, and literally feel it. Then for 10 seconds, feel that feeling and just focus on your breath. This sounds so simplistic. You go, what are you talking about? But the strange thing is that creates an awareness shift. You're no longer doing the spin. You're actually now in your body. Once you're in your body, you then ask a question. And I said it once again before, what is the one next step I can take? Either to be kind to myself, because it could just be that, I need to go eat. I haven't had a glass of water today, or I haven't, whatever that is. And it could be, I'm going to go downstairs and talk to my daughter for 5 minutes. That could be a next step, but that's coming from a place of consciousness, not from a place of being triggered. After that step, you say, and you feel your body again, you feel, is my tension a little bit less or is it still the same? Either way, 10 more seconds. What is the next thing I should do? It could be another self-care thing, or it could be, you know what? I'm going to go make that one phone call. I've needed to make that phone call. Let me go make that phone call. What happens is you start to feel like you have a little more control and power, but it comes in baby steps, especially when you're feeling that overwhelmed. It's like, feeling the waves have washed you over in the ocean. It's hard to just get right back up. So get yourself up slowly, but just keep getting yourself up with that combination. And then you asked a really brilliant question when you started this. It's really about, what does it take to keep going? What is it about something that motivates? It's passion. The big question that I always ask, and as you can tell, I think you guys can tell, I am passionate about this topic. I breathe it 10 hours a day: development, leadership, resilience, helping people be their best, make an impact. And because I've done this now, in the spirit of mastery, I was a leader, technical leader for 30 years, but I've been pursuing this space of leadership for at least 25 in a solid way. I'm not the expert, but at the same time, I have enough knowledge that I know what I like to do, and I love this. When you are in a place of passion, whatever that means for you, you're able to dig into it. Because when you ask that question, what's the one thing I can do? Ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do that is going to come from a place of my passions? Whether it be, I'm going to cook a lovely extra dish for my family tonight. That doesn't sound like it's part of work, but if it feeds your soul, it's going to actually shift you into the next thing, which then allows you to be more creative.
I actually have a question
Hi.
about leadership development. So I know, like for me personally, we kind of touched on this earlier, but this whole idea of imposter syndrome is something that I suffer from, and I think a lot of people suffer from. And in terms of leadership, I'm finding sometimes that I'm projecting like my sense of urgency and like my feeling that I have to be like on point 100% of the time onto people that I work with as a team. And I know that that's not really the best motivator. And I guess my question is like, how can I kind of tone that back, kind of develop a little more EQ and try to be more empathetic and be a more effective leader, I guess.
It's beautiful. Well, so the what you're saying brings up a very important point here. People often think that they're the leader of a team if they have a title. There's a great book called The Leader with No Title. It's written by a gentleman named Robin Sharma. And he's written quite a few good leadership books, and it's a good one. But what it's really about is leadership is a mindset. So when you see yourself at stake for your team, you can get out of your own head, because imposter syndrome says to us that we have no right to be in this spot. And I'm constantly needing to prove myself, because as soon as I make a mistake, everyone's going to say, "Ugh, no wonder you're such an idiot. You finally figured it out, right? I've known this all along. You didn't know this." We've all been there, guys. Every single person, even the most brilliant leaders, you look at them, they're CEOs now, and you think, how did that happen? This is human, unless you're a sociopath. And we have a few of those in the world right now. Unless you're a sociopath, that is going to happen. So the key is that you start to shift and be at stake for other people and start seeing yourself as a team leader, even if you don't have the title. Even if your boss is sitting in the meeting, and let's say you've got a Zoom call with 5 people. One of them is your boss, and you're a peer of the others. You can still start acting in a leader way. That doesn't mean you're usurping the boss or making him or her less, but the point is you're seeing your role as powerful. Another important tip here is to understand power, because we often, when we're very junior in our careers, give our power to our boss. And we also assume that they're going to be parsing out the compliments and to make us feel good about what we're doing and all that. We put them in a really awkward position. They're a human too. Right now with the world as it is, they're facing just as many challenges as everybody. Just because they might happen to make more money and they have a better title does not change that. So I think when each of us just steps into that realization with empathy for self, but empathy for everybody else, you get out of your own head and you have less room to feel the imposter syndrome, because you're not focusing there. You're focusing on being curious. I wonder what might be going on for these other people. I wonder. And that simple shift into wondering makes you more available for leadership, being not even the leader, but being an excellent team member. And leadership, everybody can be a leader on a team. It's not about who talks the most. In fact, it's not at all about who talks the most.
That actually makes me think of a team dynamics survey that we did of our group. And Jesse is on here. Jesse got the influencer, which, you know, we made some fun of it from a social media perspective. And I think some of it, though, her strength is in influencing her teammates, whether we're her peers or cross-functional teammates. It's influencing us to want to perform the task that she needs to unstick a problem and then carry on from there. You know, knowing, you know, I think that's the biggest leadership trait that she has, is she can win buy-in so quickly.
Wow. What's your secret, Jesse?
So the funny thing is, Kimberly has asked me this before, and it's hard for me because I feel like it is kind of like an intuitive quality. So she'll ask me, oh, you did this in this meeting. What made you do this? Or how did you make this effective? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, so it's hard for me to actually tease apart, like, maybe why I'm strong in that area. But I think it actually goes back to kind of what you were saying, Neela. Like, it's focusing on the problem at hand, or trying to rally the team together to get everyone on board with solving one problem versus I want this because I don't want to be in trouble, or this is going to make me look bad, so we got to do it this way. Like, I'm kind of like, look guys, let's, like, you know, take off our boxing gloves. I don't care how I look in front of you guys. We're a team. Like, this is our safe space, and like, let's just get it done. And I feel like that works well because people feel pretty comfortable then, you know, sharing like their true feelings. And, you know, if there is kind of like a sticky situation, like kind of learning how to navigate that together.
Brilliant. You know what you just demonstrated and what you described is psychological safety. So when in any situation, any interaction, you can help to create psychological safety for the others in the group or in the interaction, you change the dynamic of the whole thing. So what happens is that if it's a heated conversation, even if you can handle the conflict, and many people say, well, hey, this is a conflict. It's time to have healthy debate. Well, even if that's the way you react and work and you're not taking it personally, that other person might be. And so you're going to shut them down. So the question is creating psychological safety that it works for the context of your team. If you've got 3 people you work with all the time and you guys all just talk to each other in a loud tone of voice, no one takes it personally, and you debate and discuss loudly, fine, don't change that, but make sure that it all works for everybody. But often we work with new people, or there's a couple of core people and a new person comes on board. That poor new person sees the dynamic going on between the two and feels excluded. You've automatically created conditions where you're not going to get the most optimal out of how that team can operate. So I share these things with you because it's really about awareness. And Jesse, what you were saying is that you create conditions that help people feel good about it, whatever that means. You know, in Mars, I did this wonderful survey. It's about people who influence in an organization. It's before the whole influencers became popular and real now. But in the old days, this is about 15 years ago, we identified people in the organization, regardless of their level, that other people in the company came to get advice, bounce an idea off of. And if we wanted to create a change in the company, even though that person may not be a senior level, you want to get them on board because you know other people will go to them and check things out. So I guess what I'm saying is if you can be that person that other people want to talk to, automatically your own influence grows. Automatically you've created a culture of much more psychological safety and excellence. Because at the end of the day, I think one thing that unifies everybody here in this call is that we want to do our best. We're not here just to hang out. You are here to drive a real something, real change, real progress, make things happen. Well, to do that, you have to be aware of all the different parts of the other people, because this is not just a one-man operation or a one-woman operation.
So I have a question. So you get into a situation where you've got, you know, 1 or 2 people who are kind of on the same page, and then a whole group of other people on the team who are not on the same page, but they're also very high up there, VPs or, you know, people who manage whole departments. How do you work with that type of group? I know, so I'm Tamara's boss. I don't know where she is on your screen, but she belongs to me. And her and I, and I'm going to, you know, we're fantastic. We work with all the groups. We're so welcoming. You know, to your point, it's like there's no reason to not be, right? We're all kind of going towards this common goal for success, and we're, you know, but we get kind of stonewalled, and there's these huge roadblocks put up for no reason. We have very siloed departments in some aspects. So I go in as a vice president, and I have to go head to head with these people, and it's like, you guys, we're not going head to head. You know, that do you have some suggestions? And obviously on a less, you know, higher up leadership level, just in general, you know, when you're talking with someone who's a manager or whatever, and you know that you've got a couple people who are all in the same mindset, and then you have to go speak with another group, and they just totally are like, no way. Do you have any suggestions or advice or even direction on how to deal with that kind of a situation?
So it's about managing their ego. Okay, so here's what happens with new people. New people feel very judged, especially when they enter a group. Imagine, and this happens to all of us, you go to a party, everyone seems to know each other, and then there's some new person that comes. Regardless of how amazing they are, how brilliant they are, any of those things, they're new to the group and they feel like an outsider. So what happens is often these people you're referring to in an example, they're uncomfortable. But if they have a positional power, they demonstrate it's peacock feathers. They show their peacock feathers by saying, I don't agree. Because they can say that. They have every legitimate right to say that, and they have the creds to say it. But they're coming at it because they're not comfortable. They don't know what's going on, but they won't look like a leader if they don't say something. So what can they say? They say that. So that's the reason. And once again, this is the spirit of empathy to understand why and where it's coming from. Once you unpack where it's coming from, you can now dismantle it. And the way to dismantle it is to create the relationship. And that relationship may not happen in that meeting with everybody present, but it's the pre-meeting, it's the conversation ahead of time. It's sending an email ahead to that person to say, here's what we're going to be talking about. I thank you so much for your input. I know how busy you are. A little extra TLC doesn't hurt, but whatever it is, this is where wisdom comes in, and you can sort of shortcut that.
Thank you. I've been kind of directed to where we've got a couple of different plants across the United States and all that other stuff. And sometimes, you know, I deal a lot with emails, right? And I've been told, you know, maybe you need to pick a different form of communication, because sometimes people think email, you know, I'm going to say it, guys, ready? Per my previous email, right? Like the whole, did you fucking read it, guys? Jesus. You know, there's different opportunities to reach out to different people on different levels. It's just kind of knowing that connection. I've had some really great success with in-person meetings and some phone calls, right? Where in the past it would have just been a, hey, did you get this? Do we know where this project is at? Blah, blah, blah. A quick 2-minute phone call and everything's cleared up. And not only that, but it's pushed me further ahead with that person and created a better relationship. So now I actually get better response times and such, so.
So I know we're out of time, but if it's okay, can I answer this part? Because I just respond to this because it's really an interesting point.
Please.
So egos are talking to each other. Your ego is talking to their ego. And when two egos are talking to each other, it's not going to be the relationship. So what you need to do, and what you did through that extra phone call and all of that sort of stuff, you just sort of saw that person not as in the hierarchical way, but you were able to bring them into the conversation. And extra words like, hey, I need your help and support. It would be wonderful. We're having some difficulty with the team. Even a few words that you would say would really help to get us unstuck. Oh my God, people rise to the challenge. Like I said, almost everybody would, but they need to be invited. We often assume that our senior people know that. They don't. So the key here is to tell them what you need in a way that they understand and that they know what to do. And it really does help.
to just build on that, it's like talking to my kids. They have no idea what it is. And just it feels really fake at first. You know, there's that, you know, imposter syndrome and all that other stuff. Cause you feel like, you know, am I talking to a 4-year-old here? Like, great job. You know, I really appreciate all the help that's already part of your job description, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, you're so right. It's one of those where they don't know, and a little goes a long way. But I still struggle with that sometimes because I feel like these people should know. There are some people who've been in the same position for like 40 years, and you're like, why is this the way it is? And it just turns out that no one's ever, you know, done that. So
That's precisely why they don't know, because they've
I
been
know.
doing that for so long, it doesn't even occur to them.
It's not even like a blip on the radar, but I will tell everyone in this group, it absolutely feels so weird and so fake when you start doing that, because you feel like you're just stroking egos and bullshitting, and you know, you know, obviously this person's going to think I'm brown nosing them or whatever, but honestly, it's not. I've had really great success in the past 3 weeks alone, just with different relationship building opportunities, to just be like, you know what, I really appreciate all that you do, and thank you for that, you know, that kind of a thing. So
Okay, so ask yourself, would you think someone was brown nosing, you know, if they did? No, you'd be like, well, I am busy, you know, like, yeah.
right.
So we put them on a pedestal, and our ego wants to knock them down. And we want to find ways to say, what the heck, you've done this for so long, you're making so much money, you should know this. But if we take our ego down, be aware of our own ego, and then we meet them human to human, then all of a sudden it just shifts things. And guess what? You now have a relationship for life. You have a mentor. You have someone who could be a champion for you in the organization or write you the most amazing referral.
I think that's the other piece too. I mean, speaking as the older part of this group, it's, you know, as we look at the young professionals coming into the industry.
Or do a partnership in the future. So,
oh, sorry, I didn't realize. You know, as we start looking at younger professionals in the industry, as we build these relationships, whether it's the Hustlers Under 40 or any other group and volunteer opportunity, we're paying attention to your career, and we do want to influence and help you. You know, so reaching out and asking for that help isn't inappropriate when you've put in that time to build that relationship. You volunteered, you've shown up, you know, whatever that looks like. You were saying,
oh, no, I was just going to say, so, you know, like, as I said, this is truly my passion. I put my contact information in the chat itself, along with just my email and phone and all that. Please reach out, please connect on LinkedIn. And if there's anything I can do to help, I would love to do that. Like I said, this is my favorite thing. And I find this very engaging.
Wait, Emily. I'm going to interrupt real quick before you go. Kimberly, will you take a photo or a screenshot? And then Melinda, Sarah, Adriana, and WM Batch 3, if you want to throw your cameras on, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, you're just going to be faces of words. Neela, I would love to extend an opportunity. We have a call for speakers going on now for our conference next year. And I think that you would just kick it out of the park. I had to stop swearing there. That's kind of my MO.
Nomination.
You are just an incredible person. The energy that you bring and the topics that you discuss, you're so relatable, and thank you for not making any of us, especially myself, feel like an idiot asking questions. But I know Kim likes to get pictures, so do your hair, fix yourself, sit up straight, whatever you need to do. Refresh. Kim's gonna do a picture, whatever she does. But Neela, I'd love to touch base with you offline about an opportunity for you to speak at the conference. I think that would just be fantastic.
Love it.
Thank you.
okay, everyone smile. Chris, looking at you. Jeez. All right, I got you all.
Woohoo!
All right, Emily, you can go.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neela, for joining us. I will send everyone a note with Neela's contact, or rather to reach out to us for Neela's contact. And then please do. I love, Jamie, that you are inviting Neela to talk, because this is something that more of us need to hear. Thank you all for your time. It's always good to see your faces, even if you don't speak up every time. I'll be sending out ideas for the next agenda. Yeah, I am calling y'all out. Yeah, I think next month we'll do some sort of fall celebration, harvesty theme. It seems very obvious since it'll be close to Halloween. All right, thank you again. Be optimistic out there, do good, register to vote, all those things.
Thanks again for setting this up, Kimberly, and thank you, Neela. It was a fantastic conversation and some great advice.
So glad. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank
you.
Bye, Regina.
Bye.